In the army, there are hundreds of different career choices. Radio operator, infantry soldier, copper.
Get in.
What is it?
We're going to shoot it out on the ranges.
Why are British guns being used to kill Germans?
Russell's gone out the back. You hang in there, Em.
What's happening to me?
Tamsin Outhwaite stars in Red Cap, Tuesday at 9 on BBC One.
London was misty, with a golden sun-pierced mist in which buildings hung as insubstantial, soaring presences. The beautiful, dear city.
We don't just do books. Comedy, drama and books on the radio. BBC 7, a new digital radio station.
Only Radford, Hereford versus Newcastle, 1972. Ring any bells?
The FA Cup. Great drama from the BBC.
The news now on BBC One with Jane Hill.
Another Channel collision, this time a tanker loaded with kerosene. The vessel hit the sunken Tricolour. It's not clear how badly it was damaged. A day of downpours brings travel chaos and more than 100 flood warnings. And a last-minute goal from Scholes keeps United's Premiership hopes alive. Good evening. A tanker carrying 70,000 tonnes of kerosene has struck the submerged car freighter the Tricolour off the Kent coast. The ship, the Vicky, had been wedged on top of the wreck, but a short while ago it was floated off. The ship will be assessed for any damage in the morning, but there's no immediate danger to members of the crew. It's the second time a ship has struck the Tricolour since it sank last month, with £30 million worth of luxury cars on board. Our transport correspondent Simon Montague reports.
For more than 2 weeks, the car transporter Tricolour has been a dangerous hazard to navigation. Easy to see from the air, but barely visible to the 400 or 500 ships a day passing through the English Channel. One vessel's already hit this wreck, which holds nearly 3,000 cars, and tonight it's happened again.
We were informed at about 7:30 this evening that the tanker, the Vicky, she's a Turkish-flagged vessel, had gone hard aground on top of the Tricolour. Our concern obviously is with the French as well, that she's carrying 70,000 tonnes of kerosene.
The Tricolour sank last month after first colliding with the container ship Kariba. 2 days later, another vessel, the Nicola, hit the wreck of the Tricolour. And now the Vicky, with 24 crew en route from Belgium to New York, again stuck on top of the Tricolour. This, the Nicola, on top of the Tricolour 2 weeks ago, the sunken wreck just visible above the waterline. The Nicola eventually floating again on a high tide when it was pulled clear by tugs. And tonight, a high tide has again allowed the Vicky to float clear. Tugs which helped rescue the Nicola weren't needed tonight. The Vicky sailed clear under her own steam. And so far, there are no reports of serious damage or oil pollution. But it's a worry for coastguards that despite frequent warnings to seafarers, some ships still can't keep clear of the wreckage. Simon Montague, BBC News.
Nearly 140 flood warnings are enforced tonight across large areas of England and Wales, and more rain is forecast. There's disruption to rail services which could last for days. Commuters are being warned of serious delays between London and Brighton and in the Bristol area. The Environment Agency, meanwhile, is urging people in areas prone to flooding not to be complacent and to put defences in place. Our correspondent Kevin Baquet has spent the day in Bewdley in Worcestershire.
As the River Severn was rising, the Environment Agency moved in, constructing a temporary metal wall, 180 metres long and 3 metres high. It's part of a £4 million scheme following the last big floods 2 years ago.
It will actually defend against any of the floods that we've had in Bewdley in the last 100 years. Some properties down in Bewdley have been flooded 50 times in that time, and so it does offer a very high standard of protection.
But at Helston in Cornwall, they were less fortunate. Dozens of properties ended up underwater. The fire brigade did what they could, but the damage was severe.
We actually had 3 pumps pumping out, but the actual river eventually got higher than the actual level of the road, so, you know, we just couldn't cope with it, really.
In Devon, a family of 5 were rescued by firefighters after they were trapped for 2 hours up to their waists in floodwater. At Red Hill in Surrey, more than 100 rail passengers were lucky to escape injury when their train was derailed because of a landslide. In some areas, rail companies are warning of possible delays for commuters travelling to work tomorrow. In Norfolk, the possibility of more bad weather means flood warnings are still in operation, as they are in many parts of the UK. Since the last serious floods 2 years ago, the Environment Agency has spent millions on flood defences, and they say many places do have much better protection now. But there do remain some vulnerable areas where the recent flooding has caused severe damage. Kevin Baquet, BBC News, at Bewdley in Worcestershire.
Police have named a man they want to question after the remains of 2 bodies were discovered in North London. Police want to trace Anthony John Hardy, who's in his mid-50s. The remains of 2 women who've not yet been identified were found in bin liners in a street yesterday, and more body parts have been found at his flat. The Prime Minister has issued a grim New Year message saying he can't recall a time when Britain faced such difficult and dangerous problems. Mr Blair said these included the threat of war with Iraq, the possibility of terrorist attacks and economic uncertainty.
Tony Blair's still on the Egyptian holiday he departed for a week ago. The tone of this New Year message suggests his thoughts there haven't been of seasonal good cheer. With security heightened because of the terrorist threat, he says, "I cannot recall a time when Britain was confronted simultaneously by such a range of difficult and in some cases dangerous problems." Internationally, he says Iraq is the most pressing. The world must be ready to disarm Saddam Hussein, if necessary, by force. The Conservatives believe he's emphasising the international stage to divert attention from problems on the home front.
The problems in our public services, the problems people see in transport, in health, in education, in rising crime. And I fear that he's not accepting the responsibility this government has, because many of these problems are of their own making.
Mr Blair sees whether to recommend joining the euro as his biggest domestic challenge. With a decision due by the summer, his words balance personal enthusiasm against the caution of his Chancellor. We see no constitutional bar to joining, and the political case for entry is overwhelming, but ultimately it's an economic union and it's an economic case that must be made. The euro and other domestic problems land on Mr Blair's doorstep, which may be why, despite external appearances within number 10, seasonal cheer seems to have vanished as rapidly as the old year. Sean Lay, BBC News, Downing Street.
The first pictures of the damage caused by Cyclone Zoe in the Pacific show scenes of total devastation on one of the isolated Polynesian islands. A filmmaker who's flown over the region said he could see few signs of life. There's been no communication with the islands of Tikopia and Anuta since the storm struck over the weekend. Almost every tree has been uprooted by winds of more than 200 miles an hour. Football now, and Manchester United have moved up to second in the Premiership after a late goal gave them a 2-1 win over Sunderland at Old Trafford. Newcastle stay fourth as they maintained their excellent home record, beating Liverpool 1-0.
The new football year could hardly have had a better start. The league at Sunderland presented with the lead by Veron's calamitous.
Cuban's longest and most desperate rearguard actions, with United denied in every conceivable manner. Scholes' pot doing the equivalent of a snooker player's trick shot without the desired result. Luck wasn't all that stood in United's way. In the second half, there was also Jurgen Macho, who repeatedly lived up to his name.
Oh, he's done it again, Macho!
Sir Alex Ferguson looked in the mood to chew heads off, while his opposite numbers, Yorkshire Grit, looked likely to carry the day, by gum. But with just 9 minutes to go, his Sunderland side came unstuck as a hopeful punt got a finish of finesse from David Beckham. For Sunderland, agonisingly worse was to come. In injury time, Scholes' header meant their valiant defiance came to naught and kept United's championship credentials intact. Not so Liverpool's at Newcastle, where their defensive wall for Robert's free kick proved as leaky as sandbags against a rising river. In fact, Newcastle were seldom threatened. Not until the second half did Liverpool fashion a genuine chance, and then Barosh fluffed it. Gerard Houlier's side have now gone 10 games without a league victory. Kevin Geary, BBC News.
Well, in today's other games, there were 4 goals in the last 10 minutes at Highbury. Arsenal coming out of that match as 3-2 winners against Chelsea, a result there that maintains the Gunners' 5-point lead at the top of the table. Aston Villa beat Bolton 2-0, while 1 goal was enough to give Blackburn victory over Middlesbrough. Everton and Manchester City drew 2-2. Leeds' recent revival continued with a 2-0 win against Birmingham, while James Beattie's 13th goal of the season gave Southampton all 3 points against Spurs. And that's all from us for this evening. There are, of course, updates throughout the night over on BBC News 24. But from me, good night and a very happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Good evening. It's been a wet start to 2003, and especially in the south. You may have heard on the news how the flood situation has escalated, and we're not out of the woods. The Met Office have now issued a severe weather warning for more rain to come. Very wet in areas already affected, particularly southern England and South Wales, so further flooding seems certain, and dangerous driving conditions too. In fact, that rain is already showing on the radar picture just off the southwest of England, and that's going to come into other southern areas as we go through the night. We've also got some rain in the north, a little bit of patchy sleet and snow on the hills as it comes across the colder air, and sandwiched in between we've got some patchy fog to watch for if you're travelling as well. So some hazardous driving conditions first thing. Not only will it be wet, there'll be excessive spray and standing water, and it'll be very windy too through the channels. Severe gales for the Channel Islands, a real battering for northern France. So a thoroughly miserable start, and for many of us, to the day, and for many of us, of course, it's the return to work. Wet and windy in the weather in the south, some patchy fog but drier in central regions, and then we come up against that cold air with patchy rain, sleet and snow in the north. In fact, as the day goes on and the cold air starts to push a little further southwards, there's increasing risk of some snow even at lower levels across Scotland. It turns brighter with squally showers in the west and the south, and still relatively mild here despite the wind and the rain. A biting wind though in the north, and it's the last mild day really in the south because the risk of sleet and snow extends to Northern Ireland, Northern England, eventually the Midlands by the end of the day on Friday. Much drier but much colder this weekend. Bye-bye.
If they want to see what's going on over there and you're the tallest thing around, they use you. They sit on your shoulder and you can hardly believe it's true. She saw people paddling canoes. And one morning they went down and found that she had untied the rope, got in the canoe and decided to go for a punt up the river. And of course, when you look down over the boat and you see this enormous thing, I mean, like the size of an arrow.
The Life of Mammals returns next Wednesday at 9 on BBC One.
Now on BBC One, tonight's lottery news. In the main lotto draw, the winning numbers are 3, 22, 27, 29, 34, 41, and the bonus number is 31. There's no winning tickets tonight, so the jackpot for the next draw will be an estimated £9.3 million. The Lotto extra numbers are 7, 22, 31, 35, 37 and 39. Again, no winning tickets tonight, so the jackpot for the next draw will be an estimated £2.4 million. Finally, the Thunderball numbers are 8, 18, 22, 23 and 27, and the Thunderball is number 12.
We don't just do drama. Comedy, books and drama on the radio. BBC 7, a new digital radio station. BBC 7 is a new digital radio station from the BBC. It's available on DAB digital radio, online, digital satellite, cable and now Freeview. For more information, call 08700 10 10 10.
The Aliens are coming tomorrow night. Don't miss Independence Day at 8:30. Now on BBC One, John Cusack and Billy Bob Thornton are arch rivals trying to outdo each other. Strong language in Pushing Tin.